everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 4 of The Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited, and I'm loving this series so much. It has been so much fun. Last episode was officially me, diving into shipper territory, and I was like, all right, Haru and Daisuke, I'm here for it. But there's a lot of interesting comments that I have gathered up over the last couple days that I wanted to share with you all before diving into this episode, and I'm really excited about them. First of all, Wushin Sweebian noted that the VA for the reporter from episode, I think it would be episode 2, was actually the same voice actor as Hirano from Sasaki to Miyano, which is great, but also the voice actor for Inosuke from Demon Slayer. And I was like, that is such a range to go from Hirano to Inosuke. Huge range. Then he just plays this random reporter. That kills me, right? So thank you, Wushin Sweebian, for that comment. TK talks about that when Haru is chiding Daisuke in front of the two comedians in episode 2, Daisuke's nose twitches, and that's how we, the audience, are supposed to know that he detects the drugs. I missed that cue, and several people commented about it after the episode was over, but TK was the first to note that him twitching his nose was a sign that he sniffed out the drugs. So thank you for noting that, TK. Anime Annie talks about how Daisuke's lair is like Batman's, yes, in episode 3, or in episode 2 rather, but also that Haru's outfit in episode 2 is like the Riddler's. And I was like, okay, we got the Batman and the Riddler. Interesting. I'm for it. And in episode 2, Daisuke, he bought the tower and that's how he was able to launch the missiles. I was like, I think I noted in the reaction discussion that he had bought the tower, or that became apparent, but I forgot about it. So when Anime Annie said that, I was like, oh yeah, so we can cause all the damage we want to the buildings as long as we own them, right? They're not collateral damage if we own them, right? So I thought that was really good. And then the model from episode 2 has the same voice actor as Furuya from Ace of the Diamond, as well as Mahito from Jujutsu Kaisen and Sakurai from Kuroko's Basketball. What a combination. Furuya, Mahito, and Sakurai. We're not typecast in this, no sir. I loved that. And then Suzui's voice actor is the same voice actor as Takeda from Death Note. We'll talk about Death Note here in a minute. Takeda from Death Note, as well as Haruhi from Ouran High School Host Club. I'm like, man, a veteran VA, right? I love it. Thea Martin, speaking of Death Note, Thea Martin had an amazing comment saying that, Daisuke, it's funny, Daisuke's this sugar daddy that's also a detective. L from Death Note is a sugar daddy detective because he's got all the money. And so the funny and hilarious thing about that is you have these two dark-haired sugar daddy detectives who are being played opposite a charismatic character voiced by Miyano Mamoru. I will say, I do find Haru a bit more endearing than Light. But I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, what a coincidence. Miyano Mamoru was probably like, again? I thought that was funny. And then K8 and the Truck had some information about the novel series. We talked a little bit about that before episode 3. The novel series, as Truck points out, was written it was a novel series that ran from 1975 to 1977. And I'm really bummed that there's not an English translation. I'm like, it's been 50 years, Japan. Give us the translation. But K.A. also pointed out that the author, Yasutaka Tatsui, has also been a sci-fi novelist, and Truck pointed this out as well, has written novel series that have been adapted into anime, such as The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, as well as Paprika. And I actually own the DVD for Paprika, but I've never watched it. It was just, I got it in an anime bargain bin, and I was like, okay, I'll take this, but I've never watched it. So that may be a YouTube sub-goal watch in the future. I'm thinking so. But yeah, that's really cool that the same mangaka created the same author created these works that have been adapted into anime, as well as manga. K.A. pointed out that in 1985, there was a volume of manga released to go with this series. I tried to find it in English so I could buy it and read it with you all, but an English translation does not exist, although this amazing cover art from 1985 does. Look at that 30-year-old. Look at that 30-year-old manga. Yeah, that Daisuke looks a bit buff and manly there for sure. And I'm like, is Haru in the boa? Or probably not. But I thought those comments were really funny. I thought that was really great. But yeah, y'all, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in these episodes. And especially now, it's been a very episodic. Like the first 3 episodes have been just like little cases on their own. Last episode, we got some backstory about Haru, which was really good. And then we had those crazy ladies and their idol band. What? So I'm very excited to see what all this set of episodes will bring for us, y'all. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right in and see what we get with the Millionaire Detective, friends. And so let's not waste any time. We're going to start episode 4 of the Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it, Lars. Oh my gosh, this episode was so adorable. This was feeding my slice of life needs in terms of this episode. Oh my gosh. So that was incredibly cute and a nice bit of character development between the two of them. We needed the two of them interacting in an episode together on a much more intimate level, and we got some things answered. We got some questions raised, which is interesting. But I want to go through this episode because there was a lot of really cute stuff going on, right? So first of all, starting out, why Daisuke decided to leave? That's the big question. He just storms out. Like, he just storms out like he's done. He can't take it anymore. He doesn't want to have it. So there's a lot to be said there. Like, with Daisuke's personality, we have established in the last 2 episodes, episode 1, Daisuke comes on the scene, and he's very pompous and very much like, look at all my money and things like that, and swishing his hair back. And then episodes 2 and 3, we kind of see a more kind of soft version of Daisuke, where he does seem like he's, listening a little bit more to Haru and wanting to talk to Haru. And what's kind of fun about the relationship is that he is very blunt when he talks to Haru, but he also listens to him and like listens to what he's saying. So that is really nice. I appreciate that a lot. But what's interesting too is that we get Daisuke in a little bit more of a like calm and kind of chill and kind of fun, soft standpoint when he's around Haru. And here we start back up where he seems to get flustered and just runs out. I wonder if it's just him being in this big home. It's his family and stuff, and every now and then, with your family you get flustered and he just marches away, like he just can't take it anymore, right? And he just takes off, right? Or so we think. But then as he's walking away, they say later that he got the call from Haru and he just took off, right? But he didn't actually get the call from Haru till after he'd started walking. So why did he walk away? We don't know. I mean, maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll find out in a future episode what his deal was and why he walked away and he was upset, or if he needed to just blow off steam. Daisuke seems like the type of character that his way of coping with something is just to go blow off steam somewhere, just to leave and go do something. Like, he's like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to argue and make things worse. I'm just going to go walk, have my moment, and then I'll come back and be in a better mood. And that just didn't happen because Haru called him and then he just left, and the butler helped him go find Haru, right? So maybe that's the case. Maybe he was just frustrated. He needed to go blow off some steam, and that's when Haru called him to come and help him find Shiro the dog, right? And then the butler manages to take him over there. I like the butler kind of knows, like, because Daisuke was just like, I'm out in the middle of my property, I don't have a car, I'm frustrated, and the butler just comes up and he's like, hey, I can give you a ride. Kind of like he knows Daisuke. Daisuke gives off very much sometimes like angry teenager mode, even though he's literally in his 20s. He's like, I could drop you off in front of the park. And Daisuke's like, no, I'm fine here. Like, it very much gave off the vibes of, I don't want Haru to see my butler dropping me off in his little car outside the park. Because then Haru will start asking questions, and Daisuke does not want him to do that. Daisuke goes to the park very much with the mindset of, I don't want Haru to know that I, walked away from my family and I don't want to talk to them right now. Okay, the park scene. Can we talk about the park scene? Can we talk about the fact that I know this series came out last year? Can we talk about the fact that Haru is wearing like the same type of varsity jacket just like Kazuki from Buddy Daddies? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about Rei sleeping in the tub just like Daisuke does in this, like in Buddy Daddies? Can we talk about the similarities in our blondish hair protagonist and our dark hair protagonist? Because they're there, right? They're there. You have Haru and Kazuki, two characters that both kind of live on their own and are self-sufficient, making their own food and everything. And then you have Ray and Daisuke, who come from money and kind of have had it all done for them, and they're not really much of cooks or anything, although I think Daisuke is a little bit more well-adjusted this early on than Ray was. But still, the similarities in Buddy Daddies in this are kind of amazing. And knowing that Buddy Daddies came out after this, I'm like, did they just take a page from Millionaire Detective and just made it gayer? That's what it seems like. I was sitting there going, wow, this has a lot of similarities to that. I'm not complaining about it. I like it, but I was just like, huh, how about that? And Daisuke just showing up. The big difference is that unlike in Buddy Daddies, when Ray at the beginning of the series is like, I don't want anything to do with any of this involving children, bye, Daisuke actually does involve himself, but Daisuke likes doing things his own way. He likes doing things how he sees fit. So he tries to find a way that fits his style of detective work, whereas Haru kind of goes by the book, stays with the kid, does all that. And honestly, this kid is portrayed pretty genuinely as a fourth grader, right? They're like, they want to find their dog Shiro. Shiro's gone missing, and they can't find him anywhere. And then, of course, I love the fact that Daisuke goes to use Hesh and then is like, crap, I don't have it with me. He's like, I have no money. I don't have it with me. And the title of this episode is very appropriate. Nothing makes a man so adventurous as an empty pocket. It's like, yeah, no, you having no money, you kind of have to just go with the flow and do things. You don't have the luxury otherwise. So he kind of just follows Haru around in this. And the thing of it is, for whatever reason, Daisuke did not want to go home. He didn't want to go home. He was still mad for whatever reason. He was still flustered. He just needed to blow off some steam. He wasn't ready to go home and talk to anybody. And Haru, what I love about it, Haru's kind of this point of comfort for Daisuke, where he can feel comfortable around him and feel like they can hang out, they can have drinks together, they can go shopping together. It's very domestic. Aside from, I was really hoping that he like would fall asleep like next to Daisuke or next to Haru, but that's hoping too much at this point, right? Instead he falls asleep in the tub. But yeah, I thought that was really cute. So instead he helps out Haru, but says he can't do any of his magic today because he can't buy anything with money. And at first he's rather cold. He says looking for a dog is not a police officer's job, and he like starts to walk away. You know, he looks a little bit cold about it, and Haru's like, come on, man. Like, let's help this kid. And the kid's starting to cry. And again, it kind of tugs at Daisuke's heartstrings, because Haru's like, well, screw you, I'm going to help him find the dog. And then Daisuke's like, fine, I'll help as well. And the kid's like, no, take backseats. It's a promise between men. And I like that. I like that they keep that between them. It's really, really cute, right? Like I said, this kid is a very reasonable fourth grader. Like, not only is he like got the promise between men looking for Shiro, but also on top of that, he's very realistic in that he forgets where he lives. Like, he gets so confused and so worked up looking for the dog, he forgets where his home is. And it's like, no, that's actually pretty legit for a fourth grader. I could see that happening. But it's funny. He's like, and of course Daisuke like comes up with all these things. He's like, oh, the dog just went back to your house or went to the breeder's house. And like, that's just natural for dogs to do. And Haru's like, have you ever even owned a dog? Do you know what that's like? And he doesn't. He's just going off what he's researched, right? So you have Haru who speaks from experience and Daisuke who speaks from research, right? And then they go off. And I love that he tells the kid to go home, and then Haru's like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, that's nothing to do with me. Like, he just tricked the kid, right? Because that made things easier for them. And Haru's like, are you serious? It's great. Meanwhile, at the mansion, that when you see it during the daylight, it is enormous and symmetrical and huge and ridiculous. And poor Suzui is just like pacing back and forth and wondering what to do. And the grandma's not that concerned. She's like, oh, he has Haru with him. He'll be fine. I like the grandma's like, don't worry, Haru's with him. He's got this. And then the butler shows back up, and the butler says that he forgot Hesh, and that he also doesn't have his wallet. He's completely penniless. And I love that the grandma's like, he'll return once he gets hungry. Let him be. He'll be fine. He knows what he's doing. He's a grown-ass man. He'll be okay. And so then they go to the kid. They go with the kid to try to find the dog. I love that woman that came out of her yard with a baseball bat. She was like, what are you doing in my yard with my kitten? I was like, damn, woman. I was like, they don't really look that threatening, honestly. But okay. That was really funny. She's just like, get off my lawn. And then, yeah, it turns out to be a cat instead of... I was honestly fooled, because when I saw the silhouette of white go by, I'm like, oh, there's Shiro. But no, it was the cat the entire time. Just being trickstery, right? But, so Daisuke leaves, and then Haru says, well, we'll go on home. And that's when the boy realizes he doesn't know where his house is, so they go to the police station so his mom can pick him up. And I like that Haru sees him off, and the kid's like, are you going to keep looking for Shiro? And he's like, well, of course I will. He's like, that's a promise. Just, not today. He's like, I got stuff to do at home. But yeah, I'll go look tomorrow, sure. And then I like that Haru's like, oh, you're still here. I love it. He's like, why are you here? And Daisuke's like, I don't want to go home. He's like, I'm sorry to make you tag along when you were off duty. He's like, I can handle... I like the Haru tries to say, like, I can handle this by myself. Sorry to bother your time and waste it. And then he's like, he hears his stomach growl. He's like, do you want to eat? He's like, well, you could probably eat back at your mansion, couldn't you? Bye. And that's when Daisuke's like, I don't have any money. I love it. And Haru's like, huh. And Haru gives him the money to go to the train station. Like, here's the thing. He gave him the money to go to the train station to leave. And there's like a little there's a little light flashing green, and then it stops. The stoplight stops. Again, a very BL trope I've noticed in a lot of BLs, the stoplight. And he goes to take the fare to get on the train when he sees Suzui saying, I'm eagerly awaiting your return from Suzui. And he just looks like, no, I don't want to go home right now. So I don't know if there's a reason he's avoiding Suzui, if there's a reason he doesn't want to go home, if he's avoiding her for some reason. She's not his wife. She's not his girlfriend. She's a relative. So what was the reasoning? Why did they get in a kerfuffle? Right? That we don't know. He's like, I can't go home right now, so I don't want it. And so instead they go to the grocery store together. I like that Daisuke's pulling the cart. That's really cute. And the grandma was like, well, he may not return tonight. And she's like, what did I do wrong? She's like, did he not like the patterns on the shirt I intended him to wear this morning? Or was it the fact that I woke him up a little bit earlier than usual? Or because I suggested seconds to have the meal? Or was it because Nato was in the meal? Could have been. He could have just been like, I don't want to have Nato. And she's like, well, we were only thinking about his health. She's like, was it because I updated his shoes from 0.5 centimeters to 7 centimeters? Like, she's overthinking it, right? She's overthinking, like, what she's done wrong. And it's like, no, maybe he's just a guy that needed to blow off some steam, and you didn't do anything wrong, but he's not ready to come home yet, right? And I like that the grandma says this will be a good experience for him. He knows so little of this world. Like, he's such a pampered and spoiled boy that he's never really had to go get his own groceries or interact with people, the common folk he's not had to interact with. So that's really funny. And then she's like, Haru is with him too after all, so he'll probably be fine. So yeah, I like that we've got like this olive oil and stuff. And Haru asks if something happened back home. And that's when we see the Nato. So maybe it was the Nato. Maybe he was just so grumbly about breakfast that he left to go blow off steam. And maybe that was it. And Haru's like, well, you're not bothering me coming with me. So he never really addresses why he leaves. However, what's interesting is that you kind of get the impression that maybe it was the Nato just by how he reacts to that immediately when he asks the question. But then he doesn't give an actual answer. And so what I like is that we get a little bit about Haru and him and their domestic lives. Like Haru, he looks for the expiration date, but he wants like the expiration date that's going to expire the earliest because he knows how fast he drinks milk and it'll be cheaper that way, right? Whereas Daisuke is like, oh, well then you want the stuff that's going to expire, the latest. And he's like, no. And so now we just need some roux. He's like, do you always buy things yourself? And he's like, well, who else would do it for me? And I like that Daisuke says, well, couldn't somebody from your household do it? And Haru's like, who else from my household? So we find out that Haru lives alone. So he doesn't have anybody in his household that could buy it for him. And he's like, it must be nice to have a wife. And Daisuke's like, wife? He's like, did you have an argument with your wife? And he's like, argument with my wife? And he's like, did you have an argument with Suzui? And he's like, she's a relative, not my wife. He's like, yeah. And I love that immediately Haru's like, oh, well, good. And you can take that two ways, right? You can take that as Haru being happy that Suzui is not related to him because maybe Haru will try to hit on her. Or you could take it as the fact that he's happy that he's not married to her because he can hit on Daisuke now. He's like, oh, a relative. Gotcha. So that's it. Yes, good. And I like that Daisuke's like, And this is where he says, I regret my past actions. She's just desperate to get on his good side. And maybe that's the point. Maybe he's aggravated because she's being too clingy. And he just wants to get away from her for a while. Right? So they get back to Haru's apartment, which is very similar to Reagan's from Mob Psycho. And Daisuke's literally a puppy. He's just following Haru around just like, I have nowhere else to go and I don't want to go home. And Haru's like, fine, come on in. And his apartment is very, very just small and plain. He's like, cluttered, but don't worry. And I like that Daisuke's like, do you really live here? Like, you live in this tiny broom closet? And he's like, yes, I know it's the size of your regular closets for your clothes, but quit pestering me. So he goes to cook the rice and everything. I love these, like, can you chop up the carrots and potatoes over there? And he just, the way he hands Daisuke the potato, and Daisuke's just like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, you expect me to chop this potato? And when he cuts his finger, honestly, like, I keep a first aid kit around only because of coaching and stuff like that I always feel like I need it in case if like a student or somebody hurts themselves. But honestly, other than that, I don't keep around a lot of Band-Aids. And so when he asks for a first aid box, Haru's like, just lick your finger and it'll be fine. It'll heal up. Just lick it and it'll heal. He's like, you'll be okay. And that gesture, it's not a deep cut. It's like just a little scrape on his finger. It's like you could just lick it and it'd be fine, right? And that speaks volumes for Haru's mentality. Haru's like, I don't have all these resources to be prepared for anything. Haru is very like, live off the land, just take it as it comes. I'm not prepared for all these different situations like Daisuke is. But I love the gesture where Daisuke, he just leans over and just goes, like a little cat. He just like lick, like it's just like the most tiny lick possible. What? It's the cutest thing. I'm like, what the heck, man? And then, yep, they make the curry with the stew. It's so weird to see Daisuke with his hair down and like the Steven Universe sweatshirt on. It's so bizarre because like we're so used to seeing Daisuke with the hair pulled back looking very debonair, and here it's like all down in his face. And he looks like 20 years younger, right? It's so crazy. He says, you've been complaining this whole time. And then, yeah, and interestingly enough, it's like, do you have anything other than beer to drink, old Haru? Because all he has is like beer and sake, or soju as it is. And then they eat it, and he says that it's tasty. And they have just this like little domestic moment together. And then they have like, they pour the drinks together and have the potato soju, which I don't know if that's like a form of like potato sake or something, or if it's like vodka or anything. And he's like, oh, you can hold your liquor, look at you. Like they both like, he tries to give him the dry cured ham, but I just love that he instantly spits it out like, I only eat jamon iberico de belota. It's like Barefoot Contessa. I only drink dry cured ham from the southern islands of Belize, or you know, if you can't get the sea salt out of the ocean waters of Belize, then I guess the salt from your convenience store will work too. But I just love how he doesn't want to even like have anything to do with the dry cured ham. And so that's when Haru was like, well, I'll show you. I'll make you like a family tradition. And he's like, a can of tuna and bean sprouts and some wasabi or ginger and soy sauce, or soy sauce with tons of wasabi in it, and some bonito flakes. It's like, this suddenly becomes an episode of Food Wars, like halfway through. And he's like, it's our Kato family special tuna bean sprouts. And he's like, you better like this. And he does. I love it. He's like, all right. And it's just like, they have like the best sleepover, right? He makes the family traditional meals, like their snacks that their family is known for. They have like, they drink together, and then they stay up and like watch a movie. Like this is basically what me and my best friend do. We just basically like eat food, have a drink, and like watch TV. Like that's our old, like in our 30s, that's like our in our 30s party time, like hangout, right? And I love the movie that they're watching. I like that this show kind of breaks the fourth wall in knowing what it is, because when you show the TV movie, it's just a little bit more melodramatic than it needs to be. He's like, why do we hesitate to act for justice? I love how he's like, weren't detectives supposed to be heroes before they're civil servants? Don't be so naive. This isn't a detective agency. I love how just so dramatic it is. The moment they said Metropolitan, I'm like, okay, this is a movie. You call yourself a police officer. And then he's just like sitting there going, Inspector Asano, you're ordered on effective leave. Effective today. I love it. And he like slams his fist down and he has the tears in his eyes. I love as he cries. It's great. Cry to the sun. And then you have like the two of them that are just like drunk there. And Kato's like being a hero and being a civil servant. You get it, Kanbei. He's like, why? I said a hero and a civil servant. Like they're just drunk at this point, just babbling. Can you do something like that? It's hard to be like that, to be a hero and a civil servant. I love that they're just sitting there like pondering. They're having all these big, deep philosophical conversations while they've been drinking sake. It's hilarious. I love slice of life stuff like this. He's like, you're the scion of the Kanbei group, right? Why'd you come to our department? He's like, so you requested to come here. Why did you do that? And Kanbei just like shifts the chopsticks around. He's like, well, this department is perfect for a temp job, isn't it? It's probably just a rich boy's hobby for you. And he doesn't answer the question. So Kato is trying to ask him, like, why did you come here? Like, is this just a hobby for you? What was the point? And unfortunately, Kanbei is too drunk to answer. He gets all sleepy. And I love that he's like, I'm not asleep. I'm just closing my eyes. And then they come back to the movie, and then Asano is like holding the private inspector's arms, and I was like, if this had better not be foreshadowing, like Kanbei being in Kato's arms or vice versa. It better not be foreshadowing. I'm like, no. Or it better not be foreshadowing like Kato holding Chief Tanaka's in his arms or something like that. I'm like, don't be doing this, show. Don't you be putting this subtle foreshadowing here. Don't be doing that. Meanwhile, you can see like the 3 OK energy drinks that are sitting beside Suzui, and she's been sitting up the whole time waiting for Daisuke to come back, and the grandma's like, girl, get some sleep. If he didn't come back by 3 a.m. And I like that Suzui is not worried about him being with Haru necessarily. She's like, it's just Lord Daisuke has not once spent an entire night with no money on hand. He's never slept in being poor. Oh my god, I love it. And they say there that they're like, balance is limited. So why is that? Why is the balance limited? Is the balance only limited for her? And so she can't use it all? Because she gets mad at Hesh and says, hush. So it says balance limited for her, but for him it says balance unlimited. So that's interesting. I wonder if the money doesn't automatically transfer to her, it transfers to Daisuke instead. I don't know. No. In either case, I love that Haru gets up and he has the reaction of being like, oh, damn it, I drank too much. There's like a random roll of toilet paper in the living room. All the bottles and cups are still out. His jacket's still hung up. We don't see what's in his closet. His room is very minimalist. It's just it gives you the impression that he's not there very often, right? Because he's always on the job. He just comes home to eat and sleep, right? And so then when he looks in the bathtub, that's when he sees like Daisuke just sleeping there. Again, like Ray, it's kind of hilarious. And so that's when he says, put me down for commuting directly to scene for today. And he's like, what will you do? I don't have much of a choice. I'm going to look around a bit. So I like that Haru's like, I've told that kid I'd look for the dog, so I'm going to go down there and do it. And then Daisuke gets ready to go. And he's like, I'll make you breakfast with natto. And he's just like, man, he's like, I'll make you the Kato family special, the devil natto rice that he likes. So the thing of it is, he ends up finding the dog, right? They make the cute little posters and everything, and they have the day. And then Daisuke went and found Shiro. And this part's interesting, is that Daisuke discovers that poor Shiro got run over. But instead of telling the kid, your dog got ran over, you can't, because they did establish at the beginning of the episode that the kid had just got the dog, like he'd only had him like a few weeks from Mr. Sada, from the breeder. He just had him a few weeks. So it wasn't like a dog he'd been attached to his entire life. Because when he got the sibling, he didn't even notice the difference, right? He didn't even know they were different. So he had just gotten Shiro and had lost him, and then he'd gotten run over. So on the one hand, is it a little bit bad that they deceived the boy by giving him the dog that's not the dog? A little bit, yes, absolutely. And they said they'd tell the parents, so at least the parents knew. Maybe they'll tell the boy when he's older. But on the other hand, is it better? It's interesting, Daisuke's philosophy there, where he's thinking, okay, is it better to tell the kid that the dog is gone? Or if you have the opportunity, replace it with the sibling so he can be happy? Is ignorance bliss, right? And that makes me wonder about Daisuke's past, if Daisuke losing his parents, if maybe him growing up the way that he did influenced his decision to give Shiro, the sibling of Shiro, to the kid. I think that it does. I think whatever Daisuke's past is that we don't know yet, it's one of the reasons why he was influenced to make that decision to go get the sibling from the breeder. He says that's a sibling of the Shiro he's been looking for. Yeah. I'm sure he can't tell the two apart, but tell his parents about it beforehand. And yeah, and Haru's like, well, that's not what this is about. We can't solve everything with money. And at first I was with Haru. I was like, if you just got the sibling and paid the 50,000 yen instead of just finding the actual dog, like that's cutting a corner. That's not right. I did agree with Haru up until the point where Daisuke said that Shiro had been ran over. And he's like, this isn't about the money. It's the fact that I inquired to the health center. Shiro was separated and got ran over by a car. And he's like, it's 50,000 yen plus sales tax. I'll pay him the day before the day is over. Which, how much is 55,000 yen? I want to find out. 55,000 yen to USD. How much is that? Is about $400. That's about right for a puppy. That makes sense. $400 is about right. Not bad. And he's just like, And then, yeah, the kid was so happy. So, yeah, at that point, it's like, what do you do? He's like, are you going home? Yeah, I shouldn't make them worry too much. I guess he's like been up all night, pulling an all-nighter. And then I like that as he's walking away, Daisuke's eyes widen like, oh, like he thinks of something, and he stops, and he says, hey, Haru. And he says, lend me enough for the train fare! That kills me, because I thought he was going to thank him. I thought Daisuke was going to be like, thanks for the meal, thanks for letting me crash at your place, thanks for making me all the food, thanks for everything. But no! Instead of thanking him for their slumber party, he's just like, I need train fare. It's like the one episode where Haru gets to be a sugar daddy. The one time. And then, yes, he comes back with the food. And poor Suzui, she's just been, like, sitting there all the time, like Gollum. And she's like, Lord Daisuke. So, yeah, they're definitely just cousins. And he's like, I've returned. He walks past her, right? Like, he's just like, you need to quit being so clingy. And he has a little bandage on his finger. And she doesn't say anything about him possibly being hurt. But I like the grandmother's like, oh, I'm glad that you're okay. And he's like, something like this is rather trivial. So I think that in addition to the natto, I think that Daisuke is maybe upset that they're being overbearing on him, that he doesn't want to be treated like a kid or like a spoiled prince. Because here's the thing. When he goes to the detective agency, like the modern crimes thing, they don't put on airs for him. They treat him like one of the guys, right? And him and Haru's relationship is so cool because, like, when he's in Haru's apartment, Haru just gives him the potato and he's like, hey, chop this up. The faster you chop, the faster we can eat. He treats Daisuke like an equal, and he treats Daisuke like someone that is an adult. Whereas Suzui and the grandma seem to sometimes maybe coddle him a little bit, and maybe Daisuke's catching on to the fact that he's being coddled, and he's like, oh, I don't like this. So I think that has something to do with it too. I think that he likes the fact that him and Haru have this great relationship where they treat each other as equals, and he's not viewed as like this delicate little thing that needs to be pampered. That's my take on it, because he says it's rather trivial that he left. It's fine. And he says, Suzui, are you hungry? And again, even though he was upset with them, at the end of the day, he decides to make her and the butler and the grandma like the dish. Some natto, add some mayonnaise, a soft-boiled egg, and then you mix it. And top it off with a little bit of black pepper. The grand total is 246 yen, balance unlimited. And she says, hush! I like that for him it's unlimited. And she's just like, stop, hush. And I like the butler takes a picture of it, right? I like, it's like, okay. It does look really good. I've heard natto is pretty gross, but it does look really good. And then they eat it and they're... And of course she's like, oh my God, this is delicious. And he's like, well, I did learn they call it the devil's natto rice. That he learned from Haru. Aww. And then, yeah, what was it? The total that they had on there. What was the end total of it all? Yeah, 55,000 for the dog. 370 yen and 71.52. So only a meager 55,000 yen. Only a meager like 450 bucks for this episode. The cheapest one yet, right? The cheapest one yet. That's really cute. But I really liked it. I thought this was really nice. I liked this episode a lot. It was really, really cute. And it's just, you know, very domestic. Two friends like getting closer and building their relationship. I feel like at this point, it's episode 4. So we have 11 episodes, right? We talked last episode about the 3-act structure. And so your first act is to understand the characters, to meet the characters, understand who they are, set everything up. So we've done that. We've set up Haru, his home life, the past that he's had where he accidentally shot the person, and the reason why he was dejected from First Division over to Modern Crimes. We've got the understanding of Haru, his personality, his way of justice, how his personality acts, all of that. We also know Daisuke. We've learned about Daisuke, his past somewhat. We know enough of it anyway. And how his personality jives with Haru's, like how he thinks about things, what he does when he gets mad and frustrated, things like that. We've also learned about Suzui, and we learned about the grandma. We've learned about these two men and the lives surrounding them and the people surrounding them and how they interact with them. So Act 1 is complete. Next act is where the plot kicks in, or if you're in a 3-act structure, that's what should happen. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 should be our 3-act structure where we get into the plot, the conflict, we get some action, and then, you know, usually 8 or 9, 10, and 11 will be our final act. So I'm excited. This episode was adorable. I'm going to go back and rewatch it because it was that good and so cute. It was the slice of life wholesomeness I needed, and now I'm ready to see where it goes to from here. So in any case, I'm really excited, y'all. I hope you all are too. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. But in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 5 of The Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited. Bye!